YouTube, what's going on? Is We Do It All with another video from the garage. Got a 2004 Nissan Maxima here, changing the CV boot, the CV axle, excuse me. And then in another video, also be changing the high side pressure power steering line. So for this one, I'm already halfway done, but I figured I'd take a stop and just kind of go through some things. Seen a lot of videos on YouTube with people saying, you got to remove this or remove that, and quite frankly, just don't agree with it. So I'm making my own video. And granted, there's more than one way to skin a cat. This is just my way of skinning it. So just want to go through some things real quick. So as you see here, a lot of people say you have to remove this steering arm right here. You do not have to remove it. You don't have to remove the A-arm at the bottom. You don't have to remove anything. All you got to do is take your tire off. All right, take your tire off. I got my caliper right here, all intact. Remove these two bolts, which bolts, they bolt right here to the frame, to the rotor housing. Two bolts, remove those, and remove these two bolts right here that go to the strut. All right, once you remove that, this whole assembly will move to the side and the axle will actually just slide straight out. So there's no need to remove. I'm trying to hold the light and do this for y'all at the same time, but there's no need to remove this bolt here, and there's no need to remove the tie rod. Oh shoot, I'm sorry. There's no need to remove the tie rod end. All right, you can leave all that stuff intact. All you got to do is take the caliper off. Once again, take the caliper off, removing these two bolts, and I think they were 19 millimeter. All right, take those two bolts out. And then once you get those two bolts out, you take these two bolts out. I believe those were also 19 millimeter. 4 bolts, but actually this is a nut. This is a screw and a bolt. Remove those 4 bolts, pivot this to the side. And what I did to support it, I put a jack stand under the A-arm to support it, because if not, it'll be hanging by this. I think that's your ABS sensor line. You don't want that. So I put a jack stand under the A-arm to support it down there. And I also used a hanger, a wire hanger right here to support the caliper. I just got it connected up here to the golly, I hate it when I can't remember what's what. Anyway, I got it connected to the strut up here. So once you get that done, then you have access to the CV axle. Now, this CV axle actually was already out, so I really just pulled it out of the boot. But normally you'd have the rest of the shaft sitting here. Few words. There is a bracket that this axle is attached to. The axle actually rides inside of, or sits inside of a bracket, excuse me. The bracket's attached to the engine. The one on this car was pretty rusty, so I just went ahead and removed the bracket. It's three bolts, 14 millimeter bolts. It's on the block. You move those 3 bolts and it frees the axle to where you can go ahead and pull it out. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull the axle out and kind of show you guys the whole setup that I got, and then we'll go from there. But I'm just letting you guys know, to make this job easier, you do not have to remove the bolts from the A-arm or the tie rod end, okay? Tie rod end can stay where it is, and the A-arm can stay where it is. Just make sure that you support that A-arm at the bottom with something, because you don't want to have it hanging by this ABS line. All right. So let me go ahead and kind of get in a better position, and then we'll finish it up from here. All right. So after some coaxing, finally got this thing out. It's the bracket I was talking about right here. It's the bracket I was talking about. So with this one, it's pretty rusted in this little groove. So I just decided to remove these 3 bolts. It's 1, 2, and 1 on the back here, 3. 14 millimeter, take them off. The bracket comes out with the axle. And then what I'll do is I'll just get a hammer and lightly tap it off and then put it on the new axle. Or actually, I'll take that back. I'll tap it off and then I'll attach it back to the car. I'll grease it down and I'll stick the new axle into it. It was just easier for me this way. So that's why I did it. Hey, like I told you when this started, there's more than one way to skin a cat. I just found this way a whole lot easier than removing a bunch of stuff I didn't need to remove. So take it, leave it. This job literally took me about 30 minutes. to get to this point. With the axle coming out, took me about 30 minutes. Probably take me another, I don't know, 20 or so to get it back in. But anywho, yeah, we're just going to pull it out, lay that down there. So there's the axle. Oh, there's the front piece. So like I said, with this one, the boot had come off, and these bearings were actually just sitting there. So when I pulled it, I lightly pulled on it, it just popped out. I'm changing it anyway, so I really didn't care. But one word of advice, if you're ever working on these, don't pull the front of it to try to take it out, because these bearings will come out of the slot in here really easy. So yeah, there's the old axle. Like I said, I will go ahead and this bracket right here, I'll go ahead and take that off, reattach it to the car, grease it down real good, and then when I put the new axle in, I put a little grease down here on the spline. Also put a little grease up here, and I put some grease around. Oh, let me show you the new one. Hold on one sec. All right, so here's the new axle. So this piece here, this piece slides into here. So I'll grease this, I'll grease back here, and I'll grease the front. And I just do that because it just makes it easier to put it back in. It makes it a lot easier. You'll go ahead and when you put it in, you just want to guide it through to the transmission. As you can see, the hole in the transmission back there. It's going to guide it through. When you get it in, take your time, kind of rotate it a little bit. Make sure you get the grooves lined up. No need to apply any pressure as far as a hammer or anything. It should slide right in once it gets to the point where it needs to be at. All right, so just a word of advice, no hammers. So yeah, I'll do this in reverse order. Get it all put back together and go from there. So just some key things to remember. Take tire off, all right? I'm gonna remove the caliper by taking these two bolts out and removing this whole, shoot, I'm sorry about the light, guys. Removing this whole assembly as one piece, all right? No need to take the brakes and all of that stuff apart. Remove this whole assembly as one piece. What that does is it allows you to move this hub out of the way and not mess with the brake line. So what a lot of people do is, because they don't want to mess with this brake line, they leave the brake line attached to the hub, and then they have to remove these bottom pieces, this bottom A-arm, the three bolts back there, and the steering arm right there. They have to remove those because this brake line is restricting the whole hub from moving to the side. So if you just take this off, put it to the side, this piece will move out of the way far enough for you to take the axle out, all right? Any questions, hit me up below. We're going to get this new one put in, but before I do, we're going to go ahead and get the pressure line for the power steering pump change. So, like, hit me up if y'all got anything. Thanks for watching, and as always, straight from the garage as we do it all. Peace.